Welcome to the Tears Foundation's podcast, where we talk about everything related to healing after a pregnancy, infant, or child loss. Come with us on a journey to talk with people from across the world who share their stories of grief, love, and hope. Welcome to the Tears Foundation's podcast, where we talk about everything related to healing after a pregnancy, infant, or child loss. I'm Sarah Slack. I am the founder and the CEO of the Tears Foundation. And today, my guest is Marla Mendez, who is our chapter leader for the Tears Foundation for our Puerto Rico chapter. And today, we're going to talk about the Spanish-speaking community in Puerto Rico and how families experience pregnancy and infant loss. Marla, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for the invitation, Sarah. Glad to be able to join you tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, Puerto Rico has been through a lot in the last couple of years. How is everyone doing? The hurricanes, earthquakes, how is everyone doing in Puerto Rico?
Well, how people are doing depends a lot on their support system. So unfortunately, some people do not have a good support system. So in general terms, either financially or emotionally, some people are not doing well.
Yeah.
We've seen an increase in different situations, unfortunately, with suicides and all of that shows how people have been deeply impacted by all the things that have been going on since a lot of time, but mostly recently since 2017 with the Hurricanes Irma, Maria, and then the southwestern part with the earthquakes, and then we have the pandemic that affected everyone worldwide. But then a lot of people were already doing not good with all that had happened, and then the pandemic basically made everything a little more difficult. So fortunately, not everyone is doing the same.
Yeah. Well, our hearts are definitely with you guys.
Thank you.
And I know that my visit this year to Puerto Rico is a very resilient community that pulls through so much, very strong community, but we're definitely keeping you all close to us. And let's talk about you're a bereaved mother and you lost your son, Christopher, your baby boy. Tell us a little bit about your experience and about Christopher.
Yeah, well, Christopher is our third child. We have two older children. Our daughter is turning 16 tomorrow, actually, and we have an 11-year-old boy. And then Christopher is our third. We had a couple of years that were really hard, and then when I got pregnant with Christopher, it was such a joy, and we were having so many hopes and dreams with him and what we would do with him and our little children. And then unfortunately, I got a health complication, and he passed away when I was 37 weeks along. And it was, I would say, the hardest thing that I have ever had to face in my life. And when we went through the process, I at the time I didn't realize how important it was for me, the people that was around me during that time. It was a reflection that with time I got to really appreciate so much the support I received from the health professionals, from family, from coworkers, from friends. It was such a support system that held us during the worst time of our lives. Mm-hmm. And after a while, when I kind of started reflecting on that, I also realized through others' stories that not everyone got that, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And our experience with the death of Christopher made us aware of how many people sometimes suffer in silence and do not have the support that we did have, and that helped us so much in our healing journey, in our process. So really, it's been a day at a time. Sometimes at the beginning it was like a minute at a time, a day at a time, an hour at a time, and then little by little we started getting aware of what was going on around us, and just pretty much wanting to help others that were in a situation similar to us, to be able to heal and continue loving their children in a different way. Even though we don't get to parent the children that are not with us physically in the way that we parent the older ones, we do have the opportunity to honor their lives and to help others in honor of that life that, even though it was brief, made an impact in our lives. This year we also unfortunately lost our fourth child, which was our rainbow baby. And it was really also, it was hard, even though it was an earlier loss. It made me realize that something I already knew, but it was, experienced it. It's another thing, that an early loss is as painful as a later one. And pretty much, recognize the importance of giving the space of processing what you're feeling, even though it might be an early loss, and sometimes we minimize that ourselves, like, oh no, it was earlier, it shouldn't be that bad. But really, it just give your space and be able to recognize what you're feeling and going on from there.
Yeah. And I think that's really relatable for probably a lot of people listening to this, because doesn't really matter the amount of time that you carried your baby. It's the love that we have in our hearts for that child, or the dreams and the hopes that we had for that child. That's our grief. And those of us in this unfortunate community understand that. So thank you for sharing that. What would you say when we talk about in Puerto Rico specifically? I know that the culture is a little different than other parts of the United States. What is the experience like for a family losing a baby or losing a child in Puerto Rico, at the hospital, in the community? I know you said you had a great support system around you. What is, generally speaking, do you think is some of the experience in Puerto Rico?
As with the hardships related to natural disasters, when we face the death of a child, the experience varies a lot. It depends on so many factors. Unfortunately, not everyone has the support system that we had, and they might get, well, all of us sometimes get comments that we, are not necessarily helpful, even though they're given in the best, with the best intentions sometimes. But a lot of people do not have a good support system, or people around that have the tools necessary to understand what they're going through, and they might try to tell them a lot to move on and to continue and try again. You're young, you can have another baby. And sometimes due to the culture, sometimes when people do offer support, it's usually towards the mother, and sometimes fathers are forgotten, or siblings in the process.
Yeah.
So it's part of what both I and some collaborators and other nonprofits that are in a way related to infant or child loss, are trying to make aware and to bring the other members of the family to grieve, because the mother is not the only one that's going through a hard time, even though physically, obviously, when it's during pregnancy, the mother physically is getting all the process, in terms of even, if it was before birth, all the process of giving birth. But emotionally, everyone in the family is affected in a different way and might have a different way to cope. So sometimes, true to culture, it's expected of fathers to remain like strong and not show as much emotion, even sometimes from people around or themselves, they might feel that, and sometimes children might or might not be involved in the process, maybe told to be involved in the process. Sometimes in some families, they are like not made part of the process and kind of trying to shield them some way of what's going on, and you know it's some of us are trying to change that and offer space for families to grieve, you know, all of the members.
I know you've done a lot of work in Puerto Rico trying to make change. You and I have talked about the hospitals and how maybe far behind they are a little with supporting bereaved families in Puerto Rico, and how you and others in the community and the Tears Foundation's Puerto Rico chapter have really have worked hard to implement new protocols. So can you briefly talk about that a little, like what has been accomplished already to make some changes for families?
Yeah, well, the first approach was to contact hospitals to try to help them develop more compassionate care regarding pregnancy and infant loss when it happens in the hospital or clinics. And that approach didn't help a lot. It wasn't moving along. So one day I was talking with my sister and I was kind of frustrated with this. And she said, like, haven't you thought about creating a law? So then we went that route. It took a while as well to get that approved. So there's a law approved. And then the law, what said was that the health department would create a protocol that would be sent to hospitals. So the protocol was created. It was signed by the health department secretary, but hasn't reached hospitals yet. So right now, both I and other collaborators are in the process of creating awareness of the law exists. What does the protocol say? What should be helpful for parents? And very much that's where we are right now.
Well, I think it's amazing and courageous that you and your team have taken these steps to get as far as you have. And if there's anyone listening that's in Puerto Rico that wants to get involved and to help with this, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, they can either email our chapter email. It's Puerto Rico chapter at thetearsfoundation.org, and or they can contact me through my phone, 787-406-1630. We have a monthly support group meeting that we meet through Zoom, so they could contact us to receive the information to be able to join at our next monthly meeting.
Okay. And is your Zoom Spanish speaking, is anyone in the US or other countries that are Spanish speaking, are they welcome, or is it specific to Puerto Rico?
They are welcome. They can write to us through our email and they can join. The only thing that could be sometimes difficult is the time, if it's in another time zone, that our time might not work for them. But we are open to receive participants that are Spanish speaking, either in the continental US or another Spanish speaking country. So they're more than welcome to join us as well.
And the support group is for pregnancy and infant loss.
That's correct. Up to a year of age of the baby, from pregnancy to 1 year.
And we definitely appreciate you offering that support. That's once a month.
That's correct. That's correct. It's right now the second Friday of the month. We are considering maybe changing for next year, but now December, it's going to be the second Friday at 5:30 p.m. local time.
Okay, great. And before we wrap up, Marla, if there's another bereaved mother or father, grandparent that's listening right now, what would you say to them if they're struggling and maybe unsure of even how to take the next step or get up tomorrow morning because of their grief?
I would tell them that I understand how they're feeling right now, that this might be the hardest thing they are going through, and they might sometimes go through in their life, but you won't feel as you are feeling today the rest of your life. You know, it gets better, but you don't have to walk this path alone. There are many people that are compassionate and empathetic, that are willing to walk alongside you in this journey. So do not hesitate to reach out and let those people know that you need help, and they are going to be able to walk with you, and maybe not tomorrow, not the next day, but in time, you're going to find a way to honor the life of that baby that was briefly on this earth, and you're gonna learn how love, knowing that love doesn't die, you know, can help you walk each day little by little, and it gets better.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Marla. And again, if anyone needs support, the Spanish-speaking community that's listening, Marla and our Puerto Rico chapter have a monthly support group, or you can contact them to get involved in Puerto Rico or one-on-one support, or anyone that's listening. If you need support, you can reach us at the Tears Foundation, Instagram at Tears Foundation, and Facebook at Tears Foundation, or the tearsfoundation.org. We're here to support you. And again, thank you, Marla, for sharing your story and for speaking encouragement to all of us today. We appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for all that you do, and thank you for having me.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Take care.